So we had a question from Erica Robinson off. I know she's in the States somewhere. I don't know whether it's Pennsylvania or California. And her question was, when a horse arrives straight off the lorry, how do you make the decision as to whether it's going to be a driving horse or not? But if it's going single, then matching it up with another one doesn't come into it. For somebody who wants to drive a pair, or a team, as they say in America. So, how do I do it? Well, what we always say to everybody that brings horse to this yard, that it's booked in for a 6 weeks period. That's the time it takes us to produce a horse to the standard you see on YouTube. Sometimes that might run over by a week. That's rare. Sometimes it can go over, very, very rarely, by a couple of 3 weeks, but there's normally a reason for that. For instance, like a wolf tooth, some problem that we're not happy with, that we need to sort out. Shoeing wise might be a problem. All sorts of things could be. Horse being unwell with colic or something like that, which can be any horse, might take it longer, but 90% definitely without any question are done in 6 weeks. But what we always say is they'll have the 6 weeks period, booked, that they can stay here, but we take them in for a week. And if there's anything that comes to light in that time with physically, like we're looking their mouth, see if there's a wolf tooth, that type of thing, for the rubber bits that we use, a wolf tooth is not a good thing to have. Well, it's not a good thing anyway, but it's something it wouldn't bother some horses at all. Some horses would bother, but more likely to bother with a rubber bit, a larger rubber bit. The ones we manufacture ourselves are smaller, much like a metal bit, I suppose, in size. But so when it comes off the lorry, and a long time ago, a lady who was a beautiful lady, so clever and so dedicated to a she worked in Holland in a laboratory, learning all about bugs and flies and how they affected horses. And mainly she was doing, the sweet itch on horses, so the fruit fly, and she was very much into that. And she said to me, we was talking at a clinic we was at, very, very knowledgeable lady, and she recognised me from the videos. We sat down, I think we had a chat together, had lunch, I can't remember, and she said to me, she said, I always know, she said, what the horse is going to be like. So I thought to myself, well, if you know how the horse is going to be, please tell me. And she said something quite amusing. She said, well, I see if the horse brings the people in, or the people bring the horse in. And I thought that was lovely, really, because that is true. Different people have different attitudes towards horses. And I suppose what I'm saying is we take these horses, where they want to be is in a wild state, running in a herd across wherever the terrain is, and the only thing that stops them is a swamp, forest, obviously a canyon, a cliff, desert, stuff like that. But if they can stroll around grazing, then they're quite happy to do that. So we take them out of that environment. And you say, well, we breed our own horses now, but that's still instinct and ways. It's still with them. So we take them out of that and we bring them into our environment. And if we're going to do that, I'm a firm believer in you've got to be exactly the same way as you are with a child. If you ask them to do something, then they've got to do it. Now that doesn't mean you bully them, hit them, whack them, smack them, kick them into doing it. That's crazy. What you've got to do is, we're supposed to be the ones with all the brain, is cajole them, kid them along into doing what you want them to do. So once the people have gone away and left the horse, or even if you say, well, what, I might, I've never done it, but I could say, come back in a couple of hours and we'll just see how this horse is. And then we'll leave it tied up for a minute and see if it paws the ground. We'll look at its body language. We'll look at when we approach it, how it is. Does it want to be with you? Does it not want to be with you? Does it turn its quarters on you? So there's so many things, but you know, its body language is far more than I can ever put into words. There are books on it, but it's when you've been doing it as long as me and you've got the interest. I mean, it's all my life, to be honest. As long as I can get up there with the reins in my hand and work with young horses, I'm the King of England. I've got everything I could possibly want, you know. I mean that. I mean, I seriously mean that. No one can give me anything. I have everything I want, everything I could ever dream of. It's just that. And we've had a time when we've been shut down due to this COVID situation. Well, I painted all the stables, and I've done that, and I painted yellow handles and hinges and all that. And we never have had time to do that. But what I miss is just having the horse and doing exactly what you're asking me. How do you do that? Well, that's what we do. So we say, look, it can be here for a week. If everything's okay, we move forward. If there's something that's wrong, we don't. Some horses come in a terrible condition. I don't mean poor necessarily, although that has happened, but they come filthy dirty, come out of a muddy field. Well, until you get them washed off and cleaned down and groomed up properly, you can't put harness on a horse, can you, or braking gear or anything like that on a dirty horse. That's just asking for trouble. You know, so you've got to be careful of that. So you've got to get to handle and wash them off, etc. and like that. And then check them over. We might find, I mean, we had one the other day that had a great big sarcoid where the girth was going to go. Well, the horse couldn't stay, there's no point. That had to be removed in some way before we could carry on. So that type of thing, you get that sometimes, very rarely, but you do get that sort of thing. So what I would say is, it's how do you know whether this horse is going to be all right? How do I make that? That's how I do it. Someone else might say, but what I would say is this. I've never had to send one I've broke, or trained is a better word, really. I don't like the word broke, but I mean, it's just a word. How you do it is, you know, how you go about it makes you good at the job or not, doesn't it? I mean, obviously. So whatever it's called, you know, we get it referred to as breaking, gentling, you know, training. So we've never had one that we didn't get in harness and didn't drive up the road and do what we asked it to do, not what it was forced to do, but what we asked it to do. Cajole it, kid it, as I've said to you before. We've done that. So, but there are 3 or 4 films on YouTube that we put up for that very reason, where the horse does the job, but is not happy. There was one, I always remember Smoky Joe. Smoky Joe was a little Shetland pony. I don't know whether we've got any film of him, but we can definitely get from the owner. You know, we'll have a talk about him for us. But he was a dear little pony, but not at the very best of homes. And he would you know, he'd bring a tear to your eye really, because he would do everything you asked him to do. And he was, if horse could look sad, a little pony looked sad, you know. I mean, he really did look sad. And I spent a lot of time with him. I'd sit in his stable with him of an evening, and he'd come over. I'd put my old chair in there just inside the door, and he'd come over and stand with me. It took him a long time to do that. He wasn't keen. I don't know what had happened to him, whether he'd been ill treated. He certainly hadn't been treated well, but what actually happened, who does know. But a lovely little smoky colour he was, called him Smoky Joe. And the dear lady that owned him, she was a real nice person and had all the time in the world, or made time for her horses. And I said to her, look, I said, this pony's in, but he hates it. So what he would do, for instance, he'd go all round the field, he'd go in the arena, he'd go up the road, but he was never ever happy. And what he'd do, whenever you stopped, he never done anything. He didn't lash out and kick back. He didn't do anything. He wasn't even really bad tempered at all in any way. He was just genuinely sad. Now, he'd kick the shaft. So with his near side hind, he'd come up, kick the shaft, and he'd kick it 4 or 5 times, sharply. Then he'd rest that leg and kick the other one, 4 or 5 times. So I'd say to him, all right, Jojo, come on, you're a good boy. Take the harness off him, take the cart off him, lift the cart off his back. So you think, well, it must be his back. We had his back checked. We had everything checked about him we possibly could. His teeth, his back. We pushed him and shoved him for the vet in every contortion we possibly could to see if we could find something. He just didn't like it. I had a little chestnut pony the same, didn't like it. And a biggish mare, 15-hound mare, never liked it. And I had another one, which we can't find the film of. It's a shame, really. Some old people that have been following us for a long time would have seen it, but we can't find it. I don't know where it's gone on YouTube. But that one, it just kicked the cart. But it didn't kick the cart. It was in a pair, it would kick the cart. And that was just when the britching went on it, or the crupper. You could take both of them off and drive it all day. You could, people say, oh, well, just get used to it. She wouldn't get used to it, it brought her into season. And you could be, she could have one season, she'd come in the middle of a season. In that period between, with her 3 of a season, she'd come in when I had britching on. So that's just her chemical makeup, the way she was. And I said to the lady, I said, I think this is right, because I haven't got the film to show you, which is a shame, really. But some people have been watching us for a long time might have seen. And that particular, I said to her, I think she wants a foal, you know. I owned several horses in my time. I don't have lots of horses now. But I had one like that, a mare, and she was 4-year-old, and I broke her and she was all right, but she never was happy. So, and she was another one that would just show straight away as soon as you put the harness on. Within a day she'd be there. She was uncomfortable, she wasn't happy. So I'd give her away to a friend of mine. He put her in foal, and so a year later he put her back in the cart. He phoned me up, he said, do you think she'd go? I said, yeah, she'd go back in all right. I said, I'll come and give you a hand if you want to. So I popped over, put her back in, put her harness on, different horse. Absolutely different. Went up the road, skipped along and loved it. Ears pricked, tail off her quarters, loved it. You know, absolutely loved it. So that's as much as I can tell you. This and everything I say to you is how we do it here. I'm not telling you how to do it, it's only how we do it, how we assess them when they come. And you need them few days just to see them. They've got to settle down, because obviously you bring them into a new stable or barn, as it's called in the state. There'll be loads of other horses, they're calling, they've got to get to know each other, they see new people and everything. It takes them a few days to settle down. It's a big stressy thing to transport horses, you know, and a new place all in one. So that's as much as I can say about that. I hope that's answered your question. But, you know, if we can help any more, we're glad to do so. All right.